Hello everybody, this is John Mark Johnson Jr. I'm the host of Relationship and Truth and also the Reformed GGA YouTube channels. And today I'm just going to give you guys hopefully a fairly brief update regarding my health. For those of you who've been following me on Facebook, which would be John Mark Johnson Jr., Relationship and Truth, and also Thomas Matthews, those are all monikers that I use on Facebook. For those of you guys who've been following there, you will probably have most of the details. If you're following on the YouTube channels, it's mostly been radio silence from me. And so here's the latest. Last week, my GI doctor called me up regarding some of the last tests that we had done. And we were testing to see if my problem is related to some kind of inflammatory disease, specifically some kind of diffuse inflammatory disease. Pretty much every ailment that you could possibly have is usually accompanied by some level of inflammation. That's fairly typical, that's fairly normal, that's how your body reacts to problems. So whether it be a disease or trauma, whatever the case happens to be, your body is going to react with inflammation. That's just how the body does its thing. And so almost every ailment that you have can have an inflammatory component to it, and many times they do. But sometimes it's inflammation that is basically not prompted by anything outside, anything that's unusual, and that's basically a case where your body is reacting to something that isn't really there. It's basically an autoimmune disease, and our last round of testing was to see if that was the case, and that turned out to be negative as well. So far, we know that it isn't cancer, it isn't a liver problem, it isn't a gallbladder problem. It doesn't seem to be diverticulitis. That was one of the diagnoses at one point. That was from the first ER visit. Turns out that probably was incorrect. So not any of those. I think it mentioned we'd ruled out colon cancer. Now, a diffuse inflammatory disease, there still can be inflammatory components, but not a diffuse inflammatory disease. All that to say, we don't know what it is still. We've done lots and lots of testing, and at this point, you know, there doesn't seem like there'd be a whole lot of benefit to doing a whole lot more testing. My condition is stable in that I'm able to eat enough food to survive on and all those kinds of things, and my diet is still a little bit limited. But basically right now, as long as I'm on my beds, I can eat pretty much anything I want as long as I keep it in fairly small quantities that I can buy in it with simple carbohydrates. It's basically the trick to keeping it down. And then, of course, a few different supplements. The primary supplements that I'm on are fiber and turmeric, about 3,000 milligrams of turmeric, and then fiber is 3 teaspoons a day, basically morning, noon, and night. And the other major medicine that I'm on that is actually prescription is dicyclomine. I'm on a fairly strong dosage of the dicyclomine, up to 160 milligrams a day. So that's high, but it keeps everything under control. So condition is stable. We still don't technically know what it is. During the colonoscopy, they found some ulcerations and erosions in the colon, and a lot of times that would lead to a diagnosis of colitis, specifically ulcerative colitis. However, the ulcerations were not typical of ulcerative colitis. There's a different kind of ulcer, very odd kind of ulcer from what I understand from my doctor. And we had some specialists in Salt Lake take a look at my case and the images that were taken from the colonoscopy and things like that. And they couldn't figure it out either, so that was not overly reassuring. But unfortunately, with digestive health issues, that can sometimes be the case. Unfortunately, sometimes you never get an exact diagnosis, and for a while, I think I mentioned the diagnosis was IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which isn't really a diagnosis so much as it is here's a list of symptoms that you have that kind of fits into this general category kind of thing. And like I said, from the colonoscopy, that revealed ulcerations, and that's not typical of IBS, so it wasn't IBS, so it doesn't classify as IBS. But like I said, the ulcerations were not typical of ulcerative colitis either, so we don't know. But as far as moving forward, doing any further testing doesn't really seem to be all that useful of an idea, just because we've pretty much tested for everything. I've already had 2 CAT scans, ultrasound, tons of blood work, like tons and tons and tons of blood work and stool samples, and just about everything under the sun, and none of it revealed anything. Not C. diff, any of that stuff. It just, none of it's showing up. So where we're at right now is basically sticking with what works, and that's the dicyclamine, the fiber, and the turmeric. I was also on probiotics for most of this, the refrigerated kind, the good kind. I recently stopped taking those just to see what would happen, and so far things seem to be pretty good. Right now the plan is basically to find a way to make this functional, and so I'm trying to work out a way to take this with me on the road, because that's what I do for a living, is I travel around the United States visiting dealers for my company. My company is a metal building company, and we have lots of dealers throughout the US that sell our buildings for us. And my job is usually to go around and visit with them and put out brush fires and talk about the latest thing that's come down the pipe and trade out sales materials and things like that. Basically just a dealer rep, nothing overly fancy, but it does involve going out everywhere. And when you have medical condition that requires, a specific set of medications and also a specific diet, that becomes very difficult. Because we're, just on the local economy and usually staying in hotels and things like that. And so refrigerated foods don't tend to do particularly well on the road. That's a little bit of a problem. There are some ways around it. You can take a cooler with an ice block and, take it into the hotel every night and redo the ice block and the food and all that. It's somewhat doable, but it is difficult. And then, of course, if you have dietary restrictions, you're basically having to pack your food around with you, because who knows where you're going to wind up and whether or not they'll have a place where you can buy the kind of food that you need and that sort of thing. And so that's what I'm working on right now. I'm trying to eliminate as many of the supplements that I've been on as is possible, just so that I don't have to take too much on the road with me, and then figuring out a way to get everything to pack up and take with me on various trips. And the length of the trips also vary considerably. Most of the time I'm only out for 1 week at a time, but there have been occasions where I've been gone for 4 weeks at a time. And developing a system that is adaptable enough for that is also going to be somewhat cumbersome. Like I said, taking a cooler along can solve a lot of it, but there's still specific logistical issues that are going to have to be worked out. So that is what that is on that one. But for right now, basically I'm doing okay. My gut gives me issues from time to time. We're working on getting it to the point where I'll be able to go back to work and make money on my own and those kinds of things. Also, I did have a little bit of good news for you guys. Was it last week? I think it was last week. I also received news from St. Luke's, which was the hospital that I had the 2 emergency room visits at, and they have very graciously decided to cancel all of my medical debt to them. 100% coverage through St. Luke's. Now, most of that doesn't take care of all of my medical bills, and certainly not my GI doctor visits and things like that, but that takes care of the bulk of the debt. And because of that, I'm basically telling you guys right now that it looks like because St. Luke's canceled that part of the debt, I'm not going to need any more money than I've received from you guys, which has been a tremendous blessing, let me tell you, so that I can actually, sit back and relax a little bit and actually focus on getting better and those kinds of things. That's been a great blessing. But now that St. Luke's has decided that they're going to cancel all of their debts, the remaining debt that I had from the surgery center that I did the colonoscopy at, my individual GI doctor's fees, and then the diagnostic centers. There's a pathology lab, and then there's also another place called Interpath that I did the bulk of the testing at. Those bills are still there. However, most of them did give me some discount of one kind or another. Interpath was the least lenient on that one. I did get over $60 in deductions from them, but considering that I spent like $1,500 to $2,000 there, $60 isn't all that great. They were very stringent. However, my GI doctor gave me a 20% upfront discount for paying directly, basically, not going through insurance, and then another 20% reduction for March. They have a sale that they offer every March, and they just postponed my bill until March, and so that's when I paid off most of the stuff from them. So, like I said, as it stands now, it doesn't look like I'm going to need any more funds because St. Luke's canceled their part, and I was able to get some discounts from the others, and so turns out that everything that I got from you guys and whatnot actually solved it all. So thank you very much, and I don't need anything more, so please don't send me anything more. There's absolutely no reason to take money that I don't need, and frankly, if it had been within my power, I would not have taken the money in the first place. It's just got to pay bills. So there's that. So yeah, there's still a few bills that are outstanding right now just because of the way that I paid everything off. Most of the medical stuff I put on my credit card, and I'm going to be paying it all off in kind of a lump sum once I figure out like where I sit with taxes, and also next year's taxes, because this kind of stuff tends to affect things in the future as well, and so I'm going to have to juggle all that around and figure out exactly where I sit before I start paying everything off. But right now it looks like everything is going to be taken care of, so I greatly appreciate all the help and support that you guys have given considerably. I really do mean it. But like I said, it looks like I have enough money now, so please don't send any more. I do appreciate it, though. Sincerely, I appreciate it. You know, there's amazing number of people that sent in checks. One of them just last week came in, and appreciative, definitely, but it just amazes me just how many people contributed. A lot of people that I'd never met in person, they just know me online, and I really can't tell you how much that means. I really do appreciate it. But like I said, my condition is stable now, and provided I can get my meds to work out and some kind of a system planned out, I can go back on the road. The other major thing that I'm dealing with right now is that the dicyclamine works at keeping the gut pains at bay and allowing me to eat. However, it makes me extremely sleepy because, like I said, it's a very high dosage of the stuff, and the two primary side effects that are listed right on the little bottle that they give you at the pharmacy has, you know, drowsiness as the top one, and then after that is blurred vision. And for someone who spends a lot of time driving, neither of those are exactly optimal outcomes. And in terms of the drowsiness, it really does knock me out. Mornings are very hard for me now just because yeah, I just get knocked out, and it's very hard for me to function in the morning. Very, very, very difficult. And then on top of that, the gut issue, like I said, they don't have a specific diagnosis for it yet, but gut issues oftentimes can make people sleepy as well, just because the gut is not working right, and your body, you know, wants to heal itself, and a lot of the healing processes of the body usually occur when you're asleep, especially when it pertains to the gut, and so your body is trying to get you to shut down, and then the dicyclamine, it's trying to get me to shut down as well. And so, like I said, I tend to be very, very, very sleepy. I can sleep from 10 p.m. at night clear till 12 o'clock, 12 noon the next day, and then still have a full sleep cycle the next day. I'm probably only awake about half the time that I normally am, just because of how sleepy the dicyclamine makes me. And also, like I said, gut issues can make you sleepy. Usually depends on how much pain is associated with your gut issue. If you don't have a whole lot of pain, then yeah, your body is going to tend to knock you out. If you do have a lot of pain, though, it's going to be hard to sleep because of all the pain. And the good news is I'm not in a lot of pain. Bad news is, because I'm not in a lot of pain and because of the meds I'm on, it makes me really tired. So we're trying to find ways around that. There for a little while, you guys who are following me on Facebook know that I was trying another drug that was in the same family of drugs that's also commonly used for this, and it just wasn't cutting it. It would work if the pain was more occasional. But the problem is, without the dicyclomine, the gut pain is pretty much constant, and dicyclomine is good at dealing with fairly constant pain in regular doses. The other stuff was more, you kind of take it when you need it kind of thing, and dicyclomine actually is meant to be used that way as well, but that's not the way that it wound up for me, and that's not the dosage that I'm on. But the other stuff, we tried to do it as kind of a take it as you need it kind of thing, and on a dosage that would be appropriate to that, and it wasn't cutting it. Yeah, the pain came back, and that will definitely take you out there. So right now the doctor really doesn't want to mess around with my meds too much, because I have shown a lot of signs of improvements lately. And while I'm definitely not 100%, and there's definitely some issues that need to be worked out, the doctor feels that if I continue to improve like I am, I might be get to the point where I can just take the dicyclomine occasionally and basically just kind of plan my meals around my work schedule, so that, you know, basically nothing's in the gut while I'm actually working, and so there's nothing to you know, produce any pain. That's going to be really difficult, but doctor feels like that might be a viable outcome. So we'll see what happens there. And the doctor also said it's possible that, you know, I could possibly completely heal from this, and I'm definitely for that option. It's just that with how long this issue has been going on, because this issue started technically last year, around Thanksgiving time last year, late November, early December. And so it doesn't seem to me like it's something that's going away, but it seems like it kind of comes and goes in severity, and as long as I can get the severity down low enough to be functional and get back out on the road, that's something that I'll take. But yeah, for right now, the doctor doesn't want to mess with the meds too much, just because we have something that's working, and I've been showing steady improvement. My last bit of blood work came in showing a significant reduction in what was it, the C-reactive protein, the primary indicator of inflammation, that had gone down significantly. It's still a little high for what would be considered average, as I understand it, but for me, it's significantly lower than it was in the past. So yeah, things are looking good. Things are looking good. They're still up in the air technically as far as what may or may not happen, but for right now, the positives are that it looks like I'm going to be able to cover all of my medical bills. You guys, like I said, I've been more than generous, and a lot of you guys know that I also sold a lot of my guns, and between what you guys gave and what I was able to get from selling a lot of my guns, like I said, it looks like it's going to cover everything, because St. Luke's decided to cancel their portion of the debt, so I'm good to go that way. Please don't send me any more money. I don't need it right now. And if I can figure out some way to work around, you know, having specific dietary requirements for going out, and also find some way to work the medicine, my dicyclomine, into my work schedule, so that it doesn't make me drowsy at the wrong times, like while I'm driving, then I'll be able to get back out on the road and do things normally. So that's what we're looking for right now, is just it'd be really great if I could get off the dicyclomine, except for occasional use, kind of have it as an emergency measure, but nothing that I take regularly, which is what I do now. And like I said, it does appear that whatever this issue is, we still haven't been able to identify it, but whatever the issue is, that it seems to be on the decline for now. Like I said, there's a lot of gut issues that kind of come and go. You go into remission for a little while, and then something will happen that'll instigate a flare-up, and then you'll kind of have to go through the cycle again. But if I can at least get it to come down and kind of go through the valley, and get back to somewhat normal order of life, that would be a good thing. So yeah, that's my rambling description of where I am health-wise. Turns out that financially I'm doing just fine, so good there. And I do appear to be healing up from whatever this is. We don't know how much of it is going to be ongoing or not. So that part is still, having to fiddle around with that, but I'm doing significantly better than I was. The financial burden has been taken care of, and the only thing that we're trying to do now is get it to the point where I can go back out on the road and do what I normally do, and be able to earn money and fend for myself and all those kinds of things that we all like to do. I don't think there's any sane person in their right mind that actually takes any amount of pleasure in having to rely on other people. Not that I don't appreciate what you guys have done, I really do, but it just feels a whole lot better when you don't have to do those kinds of things. So anyways, thank you guys very much. I feel exceptionally blessed by everything that you guys have done for me, and hopefully, at least in this kind of regard, this will be the last time in a very long time that I will ask anyone for, at least for that kind of help, I hope. Have a wonderful day, guys. For those of you who are in Christ, go with God and be blessed. For those of you who are not, I pray that you come to know Him. I pray that you come to know the true Christ of history. Amen.